And I extend my salams to the respected Shaykh, elders, brothers, and sisters. On behalf of Bab al-Ilm Society and Islamic Pulse, we welcome you to day 3 of our Majalis series commemorating Bibi Fatima Salamullah alayha. To commence the program, I will request Brother Jari Abbas to recite Quran for us, please. Allahumma salli ala Muhammad wa ala Muhammad wajjal farjah.
أعوذ بالله من الشيطان الرجيم بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم الرحمن علم القرآن خلق الإنسان علمه البيان الشمس والقمر بحسبان والنجم والشجر يسجدان والسماء رفعها ووضع الميزان ألا تطغوا في الميزان وأقيموا الوزن بالقسط ولا تخسروا الميزان والأرض وضعها للأنام فيها فاكهة والنخل ذات الأكمام والهب ذو العصف والريحان فبأي آلاء ربكما تكذبان صدق الله العلي العظيم صلوات اللهم صل على محمد وآل محمد وعجل فرجهم
Allahumma salli ala Muhammad wa ala Muhammad wajjal farjahum. Jazakallah. May Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala accept your efforts, inshallah. इस बात की गवाह है तुरबत बतूल की नाराज कलमा गो से है बेटी रसूल की इकबाल जिससे राजी नहीं बिनते मुस्तफा इस कलमा गो ने सारी इबादत फजूल की. I will now request Brother Muhammad Kumail Rizvi to recite a salam for us, please. Allahumma salli ala Muhammad wa ali Muhammad wajjal farajahum.
Assalamu alaikum everyone. Please recite salawat.
Allahumma salli ala Muhammad wa ali Muhammad.
आज भी ज़ैनब की आती है सदा बाई हुसैन आज भी ज़ैनब की आती है सदा बाई हुसैन तेरा चेहरा तेरी आंखें भूल कब बाई हुसैन आज भी ज़ैनब की आती है सदा बाई हुसैन चलते नाके से गिराया खुद को जलती रेत पर चलते नाके से गिराया खुद को जलती रेत पर घुटनियों के बल में तेरी लाश तक आई हुसैन आज भी ज़ैनब की आती है हुसैन। बस में घबराई थी खंजर, तुझ पे जलता देख कर। बस में घबराई थी खंजर, तुझ पे जलता देख कर। फिर किसी मुश्किल में गिर कर मैं न घबराई हुसैन। आज भी ज़ैनब की आती है सदा भाई हुसैन। बह रहे थे आँख से आंसू तेरी रुखसत के वक्त, बह रहे थे आँख से आंसू तेरी रुखसत के वक्त। फिर कोई आंसू न टपका, आँखें पथराई हुसैन। आज भी ज़ैनब की आती है सदा भाई हुसैन। सलवात।
Allahumma salli ala Muhammad wa ali Muhammad wajil farajhum. Jazakallah. May Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala accept your efforts, inshallah, and increase your tawfiqat al-khair. नामे बतूल सुनते ही तज़ीम से उठो, यूं भी अदा किया करो सुन्नत रसूल की. I will now request Brother Ayan Mirza to please recite a salam for us. Allahumma salli ala Muhammad wa ali Muhammad wajil farajhum.
Assalamu alaikum, can you hear me?
Wa alaikum salam, yes we can.
Salawat. Allahumma salli ala Muhammad wa ali Muhammad wa ajil farajahum. आज रुख सद हो रही है, तुमसे ज़हरा याली। आज रुख सद हो रही है, तुमसे ज़हरा याली। क्या कहूँ दिल में ख्याल आते हैं, क्या क्या याली। आज रुख सद हो रही है, तुमसे ज़हरा याली। है मदीने वालों को था मेरा रोना ना गवार है, में मेरी मैयत उठाना या अली। बाद में रे जान क्या हो, हाल बच्चों का मेरे बाद में रे जान क्या हो, हाल बच्चों का मेरे उनको ईज़ा हो तो होगी, मुझको ईज़ा या अली। जानते हैं आप ये नाज़ों का पाला है हुसैन, जानते हैं आप ये नाज़ों का पाला है हुसैन, वो अगर रोए दिलासा इसको देना या अली। तुमको ज़हमत होगी लेकिन मेरी तस्की के लिए, तुमको ज़हमत होगी लेकिन मेरी तस्की के लिए, मेरी ग़ुर्बत पर मेरे बच्चों को लाना या अली। रह गए अपना कलेजा थाम कर मौला सईद, रह गए अपना कलेजा थाम कर मौला सईद, बोली ज़हरा जब खुदा हाफिज तुम्हारा या अली। आज रुख सत हो रही है तुमसे ज़हरा या अली। क्या कहूँ दिल में ख्याल आते हैं, क्या क्या या अली। आज रुख सत हो रही है तुमसे ज़हरा या अली। सलावत। अल्लाहुम्मा सल्लि अला मुहम्मद व आले मुहम्मद व अज्जिल
Allahumma salli ala Muhammad wa ali Muhammad wa ajil farajhum. Jazakallah. May Allah accept your efforts, inshallah. And without further ado, I will now request our respected Shaykh for his speech on today's topic, Happiness is a Journey, Surah Dhoha. Please recite a loud salawat to welcome him. Allahumma salli ala Muhammad wa ali Muhammad.
أعوذ بالله من الشيطان الرجيم بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم والضحى والليل إذا سجى ما ودعك ربك وما قلى وللآخرة خير لك من الأولى ولسوف يعطيك ربك فترضى ألم يجدك يتيما فآوى ووجدك ضالا فهدى ووجدك عائلا فأغنى فأما اليتيم فلا تقهر وأما السائل فلا تنهر وأما بنعمة ربك فحدث صدق الله العلي العظيم بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم الحمد لله رب العالمين والصلاة والسلام على سيدنا ونبينا أبي القاسم المصطفى محمد وعلى آله الطيبين الطاهرين المعصومين سيما بقية الله في الأرضين رب اشرح لي صدري ويسر لي أمري واحلل عقدة من لساني يفقه قولي. Brothers and sisters, respected elders, Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh. I'd like to start by thanking the organizers of the event and for all the coordination that's taking place. I would like to re-emphasize to share the link with as many people as you possibly can. You might have just tuned in and there's others who can potentially still benefit, inshallah. So do share the love, spread it, share it with everybody and anybody that you can possibly share it with. Now, and I'm also, alhamdulillah, it's a privilege, alhamdulillah, that some of our Sunni brothers and Sunni brothers and sisters are also attending. And that's a beautiful thing. Now, before we dive into today's subject, there is something that we need to do from the last discussion where we talked about jinns. I received a couple of messages from people who were frightened, and it seems that I presented the idea of jinns and what they can do in the last session, but we didn't give you any solutions. How awful. So there might have been a lot of youths out there and maybe some adults who actually lost some sleep over that. So first thing, very quickly, number one, yes, there are evil jinns. There is a reality behind them. But remember that there are also good jinns. There are mu'min jinns. And I'd like to extend my salamun alaykum to all of them and to welcome them also to listen. So yeah, there are bad jinns and they are working for the Taghut, but we also have good jinns on our side. Secondly, when it comes to the shayateen from among the jinns, remember to keep yourself tahir. Remember, go to your marja and see what he says about tahara, how to keep yourself clean, how to clean your clothes and all of these things. Spiritual purity, there is a wisdom behind it, and there's a wisdom behind all of the fiqh that we follow. Now, when it comes to these whispers of the jinns, just remember, identify them. Step back a moment, ask yourself, is this voice coming from yourself? If not, where is it coming from? When you've identified it, that's when you are now empowered. Never forget, the shayateen can only whisper. It is you who has the choice whether you're going to listen to those whispers or not. So you're actually the person who is in power. You're the person who's in charge. The Quran says that whenever a visitation of the shaitan happens, you should فَاسْتَعِذْ بِاللَّهِ. Seek refuge with Allah. And this is the code and this is the weapon that I want to give to all of the dear youths and all the respected elders as well today. Just simply saying, أَعُوذُ بِاللَّهِ مِنَ الشَّيْطَانِ الرَّجِيمِ, no matter what you might be facing in terms of any kind of supernatural phenomenon, it will vanish. And I know this from experience that the moment you even bring أَعُوذُ بِاللَّهِ مِنَ الشَّيْطَانِ الرَّجِيمِ to your lips, it will get rid of any darknesses, any jinns, any shayateen that might be close to you, that might be wanting to attack or to whisper or to do anything else. I did have a story in this regard, but for the brevity of time, to save time, I'm going to move on. The idea also here is Imam Ali alayhi salam. The second weapon I want to give to you today is the weapon of the wilaya of Amir al-Mu'mineen Ali ibn Abi Talib. You must understand the politics of the jinns. Just like Nabi Sulaiman had been given dominion and power over the jinns and the shayateen, he could control them. The jinns feared Nabi Sulaiman. So too, Amir al-Mu'mineen Ali ibn Abi Talib, salamullah alayhi, also had these powers. And so even to today, the jinns, the shayateen from among the jinns are afraid of him. Just mentioning his name can get rid of anything of that nature. And now the whispering of the jinns, and I want to dive into our discussion today in regards to the journey of happiness, or happiness is a journey, with this notion that, look, sometimes the jinns will try to force you to do sins. They will try to get you to do evil acts. When they fail at that, they still want to hurt you. They still want to harm you. And so sometimes they will fill you with negativity. They will tell you that you're not good enough. They'll tell you that you're not worthy. They'll tell you that you are pathetic. They will put you down. They'll put you into a state of gloom and despair. Again, step back, recognize it, repel it. Okay? Now, the Quran tells us, أَلَا بِذِكْرِ اللَّهِ تَطْمَئِنُّ الْقُلُوبِ. Surely in the remembrance of Allah do hearts find rest. This is one of the most beautiful verses of the Quran. And the more you contemplate over this verse, the closer you will get to attaining that inner peace and inner happiness. Happiness is not their ultimate goal in life is happiness. You should know that that person will never attain to that goal because it's unattainable. Happiness is just a mood. Sometimes you will be happy and sometimes you'll be sad. That's a part of life, and you need to get accustomed to it and just understand it and move on. Okay. And we're going to be discussing that in a little bit more detail, inshallah. Now, back in the day, I was 19 years old. I was looking for guidance. I was feeling trapped. I was feeling lonely. I was feeling sad, a perpetual sadness. In fact, I opened the Quran. It landed on Surah Dhoha. Surah Dhoha is absolutely beautiful, and it told me everything I needed to hear. I fell so deeply in love with that surah that I memorized it, and I was reciting it on a regular basis, on my way to university, on my way to work, wherever I was walking, in the train, wherever I was going, I would just keep reciting it. And I remember back then, I used to feel really uplifted. I used to feel really happy. And I was like, why am I feeling happy? Nothing's really changed, but I'm feeling good. Why? After this, I found a hadith, and it said, if you wish to attain happiness and gain happiness, recite Surah Dhoha. Subhanallah, sometimes we look at the hadith and we say, I want this thing, so I'm going to recite this surah. But this time it happened the opposite way. I was reciting the surah simply because I liked it. And then I discovered that the result of it is happiness. So Surah Dhoha, I recommend that everybody out there who might be feeling gloomy, dull, dry, gray, should memorize it and recite it on the regular while you're washing the dishes, while you're doing your chores. Now, Surah Dhoha is particularly special because it's not like other surahs. Other surahs, generally speaking, you can recite them in your daily prayers. Surah Dhoha, you can't. It's actually a part of another surah in the Quran, Alam nashrah laka sadrak, which is the next surah after Surah Dhoha, is actually part of it. It's a dual surah. These two surahs go hand in hand. So just a point here, it is special, it is unique, and you can't read it in your prayers. You can read it in other times in the day. Now, when it comes to Surah Dhoha, what we're going to do today, inshallah, is go through it verse by verse. And inshallah, by the end of today, we're going to discover just how much of a miracle this surah is and how it can remove all the veils of sorrow and sadness and gloom and perpetual sorrow from our lives. ببركة صلوات على محمد وآل محمد. اللهم صل على محمد وآل محمد. So, the first verses of this surah are what? وَالضُّحَى وَاللَّيْلِ إِذَا سَجَى. I swear, Allah is saying, I swear by the brilliant morning. Ad-Dhoha is the brilliant morning. It's the radiant, glistening light that fills the hours of the dawn. When you go out at that time and you see how bright it is, you see one of the core problems that we often face, and we're experiencing it, especially now during quarantine, is we're not waking up in the morning. We're not waking up and seeing the brilliant, beautiful morning. Imam Ali alayhi salam, he said that the sun bears witness that it never rose while Ali ibn Abi Talib was asleep. It is the seerah, it is the divine path of all of the prophets, all of the imams, to be awake in the early morning hours. وَاللَّيْلِ إِذَا سَجَى. And the night when it covers in darkness. You see, it's almost like a blanket of darkness. Even in that there is pleasure. You see, you go to the fiqh, and this is why we're constantly emphasizing, there is a wisdom behind the fiqh. Many of the points that we learn that the religion of Islam has commanded us to do, sometimes we overlook them. We think, it's not halal, it's not haram. For instance, it is not recommended to sleep at Maghrib time. If you sleep right before Maghrib time or after the Fajr prayers, after the dawn, these two times you're not supposed to be sleeping. We've become accustomed to sleeping at those times. We get up in the morning, we pray Fajr, and then we go straight back to sleep. I do that a lot. I just want to point that out. I don't want to become a hypocrite by saying something that I don't do. I do that a lot. And but you'll notice that this does affect your behavior. And if you analyze yourself, you'll see that it affects you to the extent where you can almost feel a heaviness, a kind of depression wash over you. Especially I've noticed it when you sleep before Maghrib time. When you sleep before Maghrib time, it's daytime, then you go to sleep. You wake up and it's dark and it's like, man, this is depressing. That's what happens. That's exactly what happens. You see, what Allah wants us to do is acclimatize ourselves with the natural disposition that is all around us. When we are rising with the sun and when we are sleeping when we go to sleep after the twilight hours, when we're awake in the twilight hours and make use of them, that perfectly syncs us up with the nature that Allah has created. In terms of the planet and the revolving of the moon and the sun and everything that's going on, it helps us to get in sync and in balance with that. That's precisely what Allah wants us to do. So let's go to the next verse now. What's another secret that it reveals for us? The next verse is particularly beautiful. It says, وَالضُّحَى وَاللَّيْلِ إِذَا سَجَى مَا وَدَّعَكَ رَبُّكَ وَمَا قَلَى. Your Lord has not forsaken you. He hasn't left you alone, nor has he detested you. He doesn't hate you. You notice that there is a recurring pattern, and we might notice it within ourselves if we just stop a moment and think. We are constantly telling ourselves, or perhaps certain voices are telling us. Remember, the Quran also tells us, يُوَسْوِسُ فِي صُدُورِ النَّاسِ مِنَ الْجِنَّةِ وَالنَّاسِ. It is both the shayateen, the jinn, and the men, human beings also, who whisper to you negative thoughts. They want to bring you down. They tell you things like, you are not worth it. You are rubbish. You can't do anything. You can't accomplish anything. You can't. You don't. You are not good enough. It is absolutely heartbreaking. Because of the nature of my work, I have to explore certain things which are happening in the society, especially back in the West. And there are so many youths who are resorting to cutting themselves, so many youths who are resorting to, heavy metal music and going into kind of a goth culture. There was a video, somebody live streamed themselves. This is a young girl. She was below the age of 18. She live streamed herself committing suicide. And what she said, Allahu Akbar, what she said before she did this is, I'm sorry I was not enough. I'm sorry I wasn't good enough. I'm sorry I wasn't pretty enough. I'm sorry I couldn't do enough, okay? This is only and only shaitan at work. This is online bullying, and the shaitan does it and other human beings do it. They bring your self-esteem and your ego down to such a level that you think you're not worthy of life anymore, okay? This is Allah now. You open the Quran, what is He telling you? I haven't forsaken you. I haven't left you. I don't hate you. I love you. Subhanallah, subhanallah, subhanallah. Now, just to give you a little bit of context about this verse, these verses rather, were revealed at a time where the wahi, the divine inspiration, had not descended upon the Holy Prophet Muhammad sallallahu alayhi wa alihi wa sallam. Allahumma salli ala Muhammadin wa ali Muhammad. And so, because he had not received divine revelation for an extended period of time, the kuffar, the disbelievers, came and mocked him. They said, oh, look, have you lost it? Look, the shaitan has left you now. Whoever was telling you those verses, you don't have that skill that you had anymore. Right? They mocked him. They made fun out of him. Thus did Jibreel come with this verse. وَالضُّحَى, I swear by the morning, I swear by the night when it covers in darkness, your Lord has not forsaken you, nor has He left you alone. Dear brothers and sisters, yes, it is in regards to the Prophet, but the Prophet, we are an extension of the Prophet. It is through the Prophet Muhammad sallallahu alayhi wa alihi wasallam, rahmatul lil alameen, the mercy for the worlds. It is through him that we understand our connection to our Creator. And so Allah is not only speaking to the Prophet sallallahu alayhi wa alihi, He's speaking to the Ummah. He's speaking to the Muslims. He's speaking to the followers of Rasulullah and Ali Muhammad. And He's speaking to you and I. Okay, He's telling us to come out of that darkness and recognize that even if you feel like the world has abandoned you, Allah has not. And that's all that matters. Okay, and you might go through times, you're not a prophet, but you might go through times where you feel uninspired. You feel like you're just not getting that inspiration that you need, that divinity that you need, okay? This is the surah for you. At that time of feeling uninspired, go to the Quran. What does it say? وَنَحْنُ أَقْرَبُ إِلَيْهِ مِنْ حَبْلٍ وَرِيدٍ. And we are closer to you than your life vein. Okay, now let's go to the next verse. What does the next verse say? وَلَلْآخِرَةُ خَيْرٌ لَكَ مِنَ الْأُولَى. And that which comes after is better for you than that which came before. One of the problems that we face when it comes to feeling gloomy and sad and despairing is we don't have hopes for the future. This entire series is about expecting that, yes, the best is yet to come. You need to believe it, dear brothers and sisters, respected elders. It is one of the traits, particularly of the Shi'as, but for all Muslims, for all believers generally, that no matter what the world throws at us, we have hopes for the future. We know that the Dhuhr is coming. And be aware, be very cautious, be warned, in fact, about anyone, whether it is shayateen, whether it is human beings, whether it is speakers from the mimbar, whoever it is who tells you that the dhuhr might happen tomorrow, but it also might happen 1,000 years from now. Be cautious of anybody who tells you, yeah, but it'll probably happen, a millennium from now. Be cautious. The Quran itself is telling us, إِنَّهُمْ يَرَوْنَهُ بَعِيدًا وَنَرَاهُ قَرِيبًا. It is the kuffar who see it as far. It is the disbelievers who see it as far. We see it as close. If you're a believer, you see it as close. You believe it. You feel that it is near. And this is one of the signs of the Dhuhr itself, that when the believers start to feel it's close, it will be close. That which comes after, dear brothers and sisters, respected elders, is much, much better than that which has gone before. And you can bring it to your personal life as well. You've suffered. You've been abused. You've been attacked. You've been hurt by people. You've been insulted. You've worked hard and you haven't been appreciated. But that's okay. Allah is reassuring you. Allah is telling you that that which comes after is better than that which has gone before. Hold on. Don't let go. Keep on going. It is the shayateen that tell you the future is bleak, there is no hope, there's too much pain. No. Deep down inside, that the best is yet to come. What's the next verse? وَلَسَوْفَ يُعْطِيكَ رَبُّكَ فَتَرْضَى. And soon your Lord will give you so that you will be well pleased. You will be satisfied. Allah is going to give you something which is going to make you absolutely satisfied, absolutely happy. Yes, it's difficult. We're surrounded by shadows. And yes, it's difficult when you're avoiding sins. Sometimes the moves that you have made for the sake of the deen make people think that you're mad. They look down upon you. There are things which you are avoiding. You're boycotting Israel, for instance. You're boycotting all those goods. But there's people in your own family who don't give you support because of that. It's okay. Don't worry about it. Allah is going to reward you for that. You're avoiding haram. You're doing all those little things that you know you can do in order to be a better Muslim, and other people are putting you down for it. They're not only are they not, praising you for it, they're not saying, wow, that's really good, I wish I could do that. Instead of saying that, they're actually putting you down. Where is this reward? Allah is assuring you that He Himself is going to give you. Sometimes you will be rewarded by the people in your life. Sometimes the people in your life will appreciate you. Sometimes the people in your life will say, wow, good job, keep going. What if, and it depends on the caliber of that person. If your friend tells you, that's something nice. But if somebody higher than your friend, for instance, if your parents look at you with happiness, that can even give you even more encouragement. Sometimes it will be a scholar. Sometimes it will be a teacher or a head teacher. Sometimes it will be, somebody even higher than that. This is Allah Himself, the creator of the heavens and the earth. He is reassuring you and telling you. First of all, He's telling the Holy Prophet. He's telling you by extension that you will be given so that you will be well pleased. Now, happiness. This discussion is about happiness being a journey. And we said we're going to expand on this idea. You see, happiness is not the goal. And anybody who says that it's the goal and strives for it, they've missed the point completely. Happiness is not the goal. Happiness is just a mood. It's just a superficial mood like other moods that exist. Now, you can get that mood from various different means, okay? The Quran tells us, إِنَّهُ هُوَ أَضْحَكَ وَأَبْكَى. Surely it is He who causes one to laugh and to cry. Allah is the one who causes. Wherever you see anybody laughing or crying, you should know that they are just an extension of Allah. Actually, ultimately, Allah is the one who controls your laughter and your tears. It's Allah, in Allah's hands, right? Now, what happens is we seek that kind of comfort or that emotional connection through the wrong means sometimes. Okay, now let's think about happiness in terms of, because what the West has done is it has defined happiness as pleasure. Pleasure and happiness are two different things, but you'll notice that what the West has done, and perhaps the East as well, is they have defined happiness as just pleasure. It's not happiness technically. When you're scrolling through your phone and you see something and it makes you laugh, that's pleasure. It's not inner happiness. That's not true happiness at all. You know, when you look at a comedian and that comedian makes you laugh, that's not necessarily happiness. It is a moment, a momentary superficial mood. Now, you can get it through movies, you can get it through sitcoms, and you can get that pleasure through scrolling through your phone and messaging people who tell you jokes and tell you amusing things. All it is at the end of the day is information. The truth about all of this is just information. And all you're doing, for instance, through the internet, is you are tapping into this entire database of information, and you're picking out little pieces which you think are going to make you happy. And momentarily, they do make you happy. Okay. Now, there are other means for acquiring that same happiness. For instance, and this is going to sound a little bit loopy and a little bit distant, but just bear with me a moment. You can get that same pleasure and happiness from the salah. You can get that same happiness from the namaz, from the prayers. You can get that same happiness from the Quran. Why do I say that in this context? Because when you tap into the internet, it's giving you certain information which is making you happy. Or you're feeding the internet with certain information. You're telling jokes, you're sharing your ideas, and that's making you happy. What if you could share it with Allah Himself, who ultimately is the database of everything that exists? Right? Imam Ali alayhi salam, he says something very, very mind-blowing. He says that, look, if I want to speak to Allah, I pray my prayers, I read salah. And if I wish for Allah to speak to me, I open the Quran. The same thing will be happening. And you'll notice that you've spent hours scrolling through your phone. And let me pause a moment and tell this to myself, because I fall into that trap a lot. Muzaffer, you fall into this trap of just looking at things all the time. You're just scrolling through your phone, right? You've wasted so much time. The same pleasure, you could have gotten it from another source. إِنَّهُ هُوَ أَضْحَكَ وَأَبْكَى. Surely it is He who makes someone cry and laugh. Now, happiness being a superficial emotion, how does Islam, and particularly the Quran, teach us to view happiness? You see, it tells us not to even worry about happiness too much. You'll notice that the Quran and even the Ahadith, they emphasize a great deal on ridaya, on satisfaction. Because one can have satisfaction and not necessarily be happy. This is that inner peace that your heart so desires, because there is no way to have perpetual happiness. And those who wish to acquire perpetual happiness end up falling into traps like scrolling through their phones, and even worse, getting addicted to certain things like drugs, like alcohol. Just go and smoke crack. Go and inject yourself with heroin. You'll see that even those people, because all they're looking for is a fix, they end up not acquiring that perpetual happiness anyway. In fact, they give up everything and they lose everything. And to the brothers and sisters out there, especially to my dear brothers and sisters, the youths, I say, stop smoking weed if you're doing it. Do not listen to the shaitan among your friends and among the shayateen when they tell you, come towards weed. Weed will help you. Weed will ease your pain and suffering. Weed will be a little bit of an enjoyment. It won't be, okay? It's just another one of these traps, which a lot of the youths, unfortunately, are falling into. And there's some who even try to Islamically justify it. There is no justification. You go to the Majalis, they have said very clearly that weed is haram when used for recreational purposes. And you'll notice that, let's just analyze that very quickly and move on. they smoke weed, they giggle for a bit, and immediately after, what happens? They get paranoid, they get sad, they get depressed, and it's just an endless cycle, okay? Come out of this way of thinking. Stop fighting and seeking for happiness. It is almost unacquirable. And I want to paint you a simile, a kind of a comparison here between happiness and rizq. There is a beautiful hadith, right, where the rizq, as we know from the Islamic perspective, is something which is apportioned for you. If you run towards it, if you run away from it, it doesn't matter. It's going to find you, okay? And there's a hadith to illustrate this point very beautifully. Imam Ali alayhi salam, he goes to a masjid and he wants to pray, okay? And he's taken his horse and he gives this horse to a man outside the masjid. And he says, hey, can you, he doesn't say it like that. He probably said, Salamun alaykum. He's Imam Ali alayhi salam, right? So he said, Salaam alaykum, can you look after my horse for a moment while I go inside to pray? So the man says, yeah. So Imam Ali alayhi salam, he leaves his horse with this individual. He goes inside the masjid. This man is now looking after the horse of Imam Ali alayhi salam. Shaitan comes to him, tells him, why don't you steal the horse? He thinks, hey, that's a good idea. He tries to steal the horse, but he can't steal the horse because it's Imam Ali alayhi salam's horse. It's obedient to the wali of the time. So he thinks, oh, I can't steal the horse. It's not moving. I'll steal the saddle instead. So he takes the seat, he takes the saddle of the horse, and he looks this way and that way. He runs to the market and he sells it for 2 pieces of gold. Imam Ali alayhi salam, he finishes his prayer. He comes out of the masjid and he says, where's that guy gone? He says, Ya Ali, he's gone and he stole your saddle and he went and sold it in the market for 2 gold pieces. Imam Ali alayhi salam says, I wanted to give him these 2 gold pieces for looking after my horse. You see, those 2 gold pieces were destined for that man. He was going to get those 2 pieces no matter what he did, but he chose to get it in a haram way. If he had chosen to obey Imam Ali, just look after the horse, he would have gotten those same 2 gold pieces. Humor me for a moment. Imagine happiness is similar to rizq. It's similar to sustenance. There are going to be times where you're going to be happy and times where you're going to be sad. It's a natural part of life, and Allah has already written that for you. At this moment, this person is going to be happy. At this moment, this person is going to be sad. And He's already written that pattern. The only difference, dear brothers and sisters, is how you chose to acquire that happiness or that sorrow. There are some who get that same happiness that a normal person gets from watching a movie or watching a video from reading the Quran. And the same thing that you do to avoid the sorrow that might have been caused to you, if, for example, you obeyed the religion of Islam and you, for example, you did something, you gave something up, the same sorrow that you wanted to avoid, it will find you in another way. There's no avoiding it. A mature person will understand this, and they won't be seeking for happiness so urgently that it drives them towards sins. Now, have you ever met a person who's always happy? I want us to just think about this for a moment. Have you met a person who's always happy? Every time, hello, they're annoying. They're really irritating, aren't they? You don't want to be that person. And they just look high, right? Imagine them they go to a funeral and there they are, happy. Somebody's just died. Stop being so happy. It's weird, right? Don't try and be that person, right? You don't need to be happy all the time. Sometimes it's good for you to be sad. Sometimes you feel weirdly satisfied when you're not happy. Think about moments in your life where you've been frowning. Somebody who walked by might have thought that you're upset, that you're sad, that you're angry about something, but you weren't. You were just contemplating about something. And in that contemplation, you actually felt inside yourself happy. You felt satisfied, right? This is what Allah wants you to acquire. It's not necessarily the superficial happiness which shows on the surface. And when people only show that surface happiness, sometimes it leads them to a deep, deep sorrow, which Islam doesn't actually want you to have. Although we do have a hadith which says that the believer is such that his face is happy while deep down inside his sorrow is buried in his heart. Now, another point in this regard is that, look, sometimes materialism causes unhappiness. Materialism causes unhappiness. We live in a society which teaches us to seek things in order to make us happy. And we're always in this race to just get more stuff, get more things, get more stuff, get more things. Look at your house for a moment. It's cluttered. It's cluttered. It probably is cluttered. I'm guessing, I'm assuming, I'm sorry if it's not, but it's cluttered, right? It's cluttered with loads of stuff, just stuff. Why have you got that stuff? Sometimes shedding that stuff, getting rid of it, selling it online, just throwing it in the trash. People who accumulate so much stuff, they don't even realize what they're doing, but they have actually burdened themselves. And now it's going to be more difficult for them to find happiness because they don't even realize that they're attached to those things. And they won't realize that they're attached until you tell them to get rid of them. Of course, nobody's going to come into your house and say, get rid of this, get rid of that. And when somebody does say that, you'll probably be like, why should I? Why should I get rid of this fridge magnet? This fridge magnet is a symbol that my friends went to Malta and they bought me this lousy magnet. I want these I don't know, these decorative items. I want this frame. I like this. This poster defines who I am. All of these things, they might seem superficial, and you might even say that you know that they're superficial, but you don't realize just how attached you are to them until you're told to get rid of them. And when you do get rid of them, and you realize that when you have the power to get rid of all these things, you don't need any of these things, and your house becomes barren, almost barren and empty, suddenly you'll start to search for things that have more meaning, and it will provide a gateway for your happiness, true happiness, to enter into your house. And I've used the house as an analogy, but actually it applies to so many things. Your laptop is cluttered with things that you don't even use. Why aren't you getting rid of those movies? Why aren't you getting rid of those series after series after series of sitcoms? No, just in case one day I feel like watching it. Why would you feel like watching it? How is it going to help you when you do watch it? Your phone also completely cluttered. I like these pictures. There's thousands and thousands of memories and things like that. Think about what effect it will have on you when you get rid of all these such things. And I'm not saying that it's necessary, by the way. I'm just suggesting something here. I'm not saying that, no, this is haram or even makruh, or even, I'm not saying anything like that, okay? But I'm asking us to just contemplate a moment and think, how much has materialism truly just taken over our lives? We don't realize until we get rid of those things, okay? Another point on this before we move on is the idea that sometimes it's not attachment to materialistic things per se. Sometimes it's attachments to those around us, our loved ones, our family members. And sometimes the reason why we are attached to them also is a good reason. It's an Islamic reason, okay? Sometimes it's because we want them to follow the religion of Islam. We see that they're committing certain sins. We see that they're going astray, and it hurts us. And we have told them certain times, don't do this. This isn't what Islam says. You know it's haram. For example, it could be haram music, or it could be hijab, or it could be so many other issues, or eating a haram substance, or saying certain things, or believing in a certain, a deviant idea. There are lots of things, right? And it can apply to our parents. It can apply to so many people in our lives. It is good to have this feeling. In fact, it's a prophetic feeling. And it means that you're connected to Islam, you're connected to the Prophet. When you feel pain in your heart for the people around you and you don't want them to be astray, that's a good thing. But at the same time, we need to learn that it can cause tremendous pain. And to a certain extent, we need to learn to let go. لعلك باخع نفسك إن لم يؤمنوا بهذا الحديث أسفا. The Quran itself in Surah Kahf, it says, perhaps you will, remember it's telling the Prophet, perhaps you will kill yourself. لعلك باخع نفسك, perhaps you will kill yourself. على آثارهم, upon their footsteps, because of their footsteps. إن لم يؤمنوا بهذا الحديث أسفا, if they do not believe in this hadith, in this narrative. Okay, the Quran, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala is reassuring the Prophet and telling him, don't kill yourself over this. I understand that it's a pain that you have in your heart, and it's a prophetic pain, and I appreciate that you have that pain, and it's understandable that you should have that pain, but at the same time, stop killing yourself. Dear brothers and sisters, respected elders, sometimes because of our brother, because of our sister, because of what our son is doing, because of what our daughter is doing, because of what our parents are doing, because of what some cousins are doing, because of what some aunties or uncles are doing, because of what some friends and brothers and sisters in Islam are doing, we hurt ourselves. We're killing ourselves inside. Allah is reassuring us, don't kill yourself over it. To it, have that pain. It's understandable. At the same time, understand that you need to let go. Allah guides whom He pleases. وَلَسَوْفَ يُعْتِيكَ رَبُّكَ فَتَرْضَى. And soon your Lord will give you so that you will be satisfied. And He will give you that satisfaction and that inner peace and that happiness inside you, insha'Allah. Now the next verse of Surah Dhoha. ببركة الصلوات على محمد وآله الطاهرين. Should have bought myself some water. The Quran, the next verse of Surah Dhoha, it says, أَلَمْ يَجِدْكَ يَتِيمًا فَآوَى. This is where it really, this is the part where it starts to draw tears from your eyes. أَلَمْ يَجِدْكَ يَتِيمًا فَآوَى وَوَجَدَكَ ضَالًا فَهَدَى وَوَجَدَكَ عَائِلًا فَأَغْنَى. Did He not find you an orphan and give you shelter and care? Did He not find you lost and guided you? And did He not find you poor and make you free of need? One of the reasons we fall into this deep gloom and we miss out on the potential sorrow that Allah has in store, the potential happiness, that Allah has in store for us, is because we forget how Allah treated us mercifully in the past. Allah is telling you, did we not find you lost and guided you? Think about the amount of times, dear brothers and sisters, respected elders. Think about the amount of times where you were socially awkward, for instance. You didn't know how to behave in public. Think about the amount of times where you didn't know how to behave or what to do in a certain situation, and Allah showed you how to. And by the way, these verses won't make sense to many Muslims because I tell you, many Muslims have not yet discovered Islam. That's right. Many Muslims have not yet discovered Islam. They have not become born again, so to speak. They have not submitted themselves entirely, at least trying to. They haven't discovered it the way reverts discover it. And if you are constantly trying to get closer to Allah, every other day, you will rediscover Islam and He will guide you in ways that you could never imagine before. Okay, so think back to the past now, to times where you were in pain, where you were lost, where you were confused, where you were hurt, where you were abandoned, and Allah saved you. And I want to give you some context here. You see, the context here is the Holy Prophet ﷺ is being spoken to. And Allah is actually telling him, did we not find you an orphan and give you shelter and care? The Holy Prophet was an orphan. His parents passed away when he was only young, very, very young. And so he was raised by Abu Talib alayhi salam. Okay, this great individual raised him. Okay, and while there is a narrative that exists among the Muslims, and they say that he was not a Muslim himself, how can that be possible when the verses of this surah themselves are saying, we took care of you, O Muhammad? Who did we take care of you through? Abu Talib, the uncle of Imam Ali alayhi salam. Okay, so here's a bit of context, but then we have to take this to ourselves and understand that, look, we have also been looked after. Think about all the blessings that we have been given. You have a roof over your head. Look at the amount of people who are dying because of the virus. Look at how many people are suffering in the world today because of war and famine and so many other things. But more than that, look at how many people are unguided. They don't know right from wrong. And so they're just blindly wandering on. Those who, from among the Muslims who have rediscovered Islam and truly wish to apply it to themselves, you know what they're like? They recognize that fashion should be defined by Islam, that my hairstyle should be defined by Islam, not by society, not by what people think. I'm not going to do what I want because I want to do it. No, I'm going to do what I want because Allah wants me to do it. My profession, my entire life plan, it should be in the hands of Allah. When we truly do submit and we put our entire lives into the hands of Allah and we say, Allah, I'm giving it all to you. You're looking after everything. It gives one a sense of inner peace and happiness and satisfaction to the point where no matter what you face in life, you know that the driver of your ship is Imam Zaman, and he is going to help you. Allah is going to guide you to it. If Allah brought you to it, he will bring you through it. Okay? And that's what it's really about. That's what Islam is really all about. Submission is telling us to just give everything in the way of Allah. Yes, everything. Dear brothers and sisters, stop thinking that your life goal is happiness. It's not. Your life goal, as per the Quran, is to obey and serve Allah. And we might think, oh, I don't want to be a slave of someone. Look, when you become a slave of Allah, when you become an abd of Allah, I'm speaking to myself before I speak to anybody else. When you put yourself completely and entirely into the ship of Allah, the ship of the Ahlul Bayt, you say you take control, everything else gets taken care of. And when you do that, there is no worry in life anymore. It's strange, truly strange, when you meet people who say that they believe in Allah and the prophets and the imams, but they're constantly worrying, what if this happens? What if that happens? What if this happens? Constantly afraid. I'm scared of this. I'm scared of that. How can you be scared? Allah is in charge. You've placed yourself into the care and custody and control of Allah. If Allah wants you to die, then you're going to die. Nobody else can control your death. If Allah wants you to get sick, He's going to control. And we're going to come to this again in a moment with the next verse, because you'll see just how relevant it becomes to the journey of happiness. Okay? The Quran, the next part of the verse, it says, فَأَمَّا الْيَتِيمَ فَلَا تَقْهَرْ وَأَمَّا السَّائِلَ فَلَا تَنْهَرْ. Okay, it says, then as for the orphan, the one who's been deprived, the one who doesn't have somebody to look after them, the one, for instance, who's not educated. It's not necessarily just somebody who doesn't have parents, right? It's somebody who doesn't have a guide, somebody who doesn't have somebody to help them, somebody who doesn't have somebody to lean on. When you meet such people, help them. Give them a shoulder. Extend the wings of your mercy to them. What is the beauty in this? And how does it help us to acquire true happiness? One of the problems when it comes to acquiring or realizing true inner peace and happiness is we don't look at those who are less fortunate than us. Okay, when we look down, we see that there are others suffering, and it can be others outside in the world. It can be the oppressed in places like Syria and Iraq and Afghanistan, and it can be people in our own vicinities as well. Middle, lower class people, people who are truly suffering. You can see the number of, maybe not orphans, but there are lots of single parents out there. And since I'm speaking to predominantly Westerners, look, there's a tremendous amount of suffering that is taking place to non-Muslims as well, and to those who have not yet been guided by Islam, but in the future, inshallah, they will be. We need to recognize that we need to help them, right? And what Allah is telling us here is that, look, I have bestowed favors upon you. I have guided you. I've helped you. I've established you on the earth. Now it's your turn to be godly with others. Behave in a godly fashion with others. If I've helped you, if I've guided you, now you need to help and guide others. If I've given you shelter and care, now you need to go out there and give shelter and care to others. If I have given you food, water, drinks, you need to go and give that food, water, share the love. The more you share, the more it will come back to you. And this is a philosophy that we need to live our lives by. You see, the Quran, it tells us whenever you're faced by a difficulty, say, Inna lillahi wa inna ilayhi raji'un. We are Allah's and to Allah we will return. This is often given a negative twist, and we say it in negative times. But let's look at it a moment in a positive light. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala is saying that whenever He creates something, that something will return to Him. You and I are creations of Allah, and the heavens and the earth is all a creation of Allah. Eventually, all of this is going to return to Him. Now, similarly, if you create something, because Allah has given you and I the ability to create, that's right. Every time we say something erupts from our mouths. We say something. We have essentially created a thought out there. We've created something. Whenever we do an action, we have created something. Allah is telling us that whatever we put out there, it will return to you. If it's something good, it will multiply and return back to you. So you give a little love and it all comes back to you. Sorry, that made me cringe when I said it. But there's a reality behind it. Okay, we need to have a more giving attitude. And now for the final verse of this beautiful surah. فَأَمَّا بِنِعْمَةِ رَبِّكَ فَحَدِّثْ. So as for the favor of your Lord, announce it. Announce it. Now, first and foremost, this is the wilaya of Imam Ali alayhi salam. This deen of Islam, holistically, which has been given to you. If you truly believe that this is the deen which has the solution for all the problems that the world is today facing, if you truly believe that, you would be sharing it like wildfire with others, dear brothers and sisters. You would not be keeping it to yourselves. Why are you being stingy with the message of love? Why are you being stingy with the Ahlul Bayt? Why are you being stingy with the message of the Quran? One of the reasons could be that you're afraid. If I share it with others, they're going to attack me. They're going to attack the religion. They're going to say bad things about them. Let them. There's some who will attack it and others who will accept it. That's all that matters. And that has been the general ethos from day one. فَذَكِّرْ إِنَّ فَعَةَ الذِّكْرَى سَيَذَّكَّرُ مَنْ يَخْشَى وَيَتَجَنَّبُهَا الْأَشْقَى. So share the remembrance, remind them. Surely reminding others helps. Those who wish to pay heed will pay heed, and those who wish to reject will reject it. It's your job to be godly now. If Allah has given you this love, you need to share it with others. And now, on another degree, this verse is talking about generally the favors that Allah has given you. If He's given you money, spend it. One of the biggest problems in acquiring happiness is people are stingy with their money. They don't spend it. Or they have a big house. Let people inside. No. It could get dirty if people come inside. No, they have that family. I know this from experience, right? Because alhamdulillah, I come from a family of like brothers and stuff, and we were quite naughty. I've also been told by my parents not to share too much personal experiences with the brothers and sisters out there. So I'm going to refrain from saying anything else. But there are people who say, don't invite that family. They're going to come and mess everything up. Come on, man. Share the love. Share the love, okay? And sometimes it's about things that we do in a stingy manner because of fears. And one of those fears, which I quickly want to touch upon before we go to the masa'ib, is the idea of nazar. Nazar, the idea that, the evil eye. Now, I'm not saying that this phenomenon doesn't exist. It does exist, okay? There is a reality behind it in the Quran as well, and it does tell us, يَكَادُ الَّذِينَ كَفَرُوا, it says, and the disbelievers might wish that they can cause you to stumble with their eyes, right? That may happen sometimes, but at the same time, we take it to such an extent where, no, I can't wear those clothes. People will look at me and then, I don't know, I'll suddenly turn ugly. Or, I don't know, I can't show them my house or my belongings, or I can't do anything like that. No. Of course, we don't want to be showing off. That's also another extreme. But look, there is an element to this which just makes us stingy. And then even though we have been given blessings, we're afraid to use those blessings. We're afraid to share those blessings with others. We're afraid to just generally live our lives in a happy way because we're afraid that if people see me happy, they might put another on me and then I'll be sad. A person who believes that everything is ultimately in the hands of Allah won't allow such superstitions to affect them to such an extent that they will just stop living, okay? And at the same time, I'm not saying, if you've got it, flaunt it. I'm not saying to go out and show off. I'm not saying to just, completely be out there and be flamboyant. No, that's also another extreme. But also, we must recognize that Imam Sadiq alayhi salam, I believe it was Imam Sadiq, said that, look, when Allah, it was the Holy Prophet Muhammad sallallahu alayhi wa alihi wasallam himself. Kulluhum nurun wahida. They're all from the same light. So he said that, look, when Allah bestows a blessing on his servant, it pleases Allah to see that blessing on him, okay? Don't always be, when your friends say they want to go out, oh, no, I don't have enough. Oh, no, I can't do anything. No, I can't do that. No. Always saying no. And you expect to be happy? Come on. And now, I'd like to take us now to the idea of really recognizing that happiness is a journey, all right? It's not a goal. Happiness is a superficial emotion. Sometimes you will be happy, dear brothers, and sometimes you will be sad. And we have a hadith from the Ahlul Bayt that teach us that, look, our Shi'as are those who are happy with our happiness and they are sad with our sadness, okay? One of the divine wisdoms behind days in which we're living right now, like Ayyam Fatimiyyah and Muharram, and the sacred days in which we mourn for the Ahlul Bayt, as well as those days where we have Eids and we celebrate, one of the wisdoms behind this is to allow the mu'mineen to become acclimatized and in sync with the Ahlul Bayt, and by extension with the universe. Strike that, reverse it, okay? It's to help us to get in sync with that. When we are happy with their happiness and sad with their sadness, it will help us to get in sync with Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. And it's that true satisfaction that Allah is actually searching for, that no matter what we go through in life, whether it's happiness, whether it's sadness, whether it's poverty, or whether it's freedom from poverty, we are never moved from the path of wilayah, and we never budge from our religion. Inna lillahi wa inna ilayhi raji'un. I'd like everybody to give a salawat ala Muhammad wa ali Muhammad. Allahumma salli ala Muhammad wa ali Muhammad. Inna lillahi wa inna ilayhi raji'un. Inna lillahi wa inna ilayhi raji'un. There are many who claim to love Imam Ali alayhi salam and the Ahlul Bayt. But if you truly love Imam Ali, then you should be prepared for hardships. For the Taghut will do everything to crush you. And this is the path of the Ahlul Bayt. Those who are on the path will say that our Mawla Ali did not leave this world except that he had been struck by the sword. And so it would be a dishonor for us to leave this world without being struck by the sword. Imam Hassan's coffin had been showered with arrows, and so we too wish to be showered with arrows. Imam Hussein alayhi salam left this world while his head had been cut from his body. And so it would be a dishonor for us to die peacefully in our beds. No, dear mourners. Every one of the Ahlul Bayt were martyred. And they were martyred in such a brutal way while being alone and being filled with sorrow. And so we say, we do not wish to leave this lowly dunya except in that way that they left. This is the true. Only the lovers. You will sometimes see victories and happiness, and sometimes you will face adversity and pain, and sometimes the oppressors will attack you. They will attack your house with your children inside and break everything you hold most dear. At that time, will you hold firm to wilayah as Fatima salamullah alayha did? Imagine it, dear mourners. The door is on fire and there is fire everywhere outside the house as well. The daughter of Rasulullah lies bleeding on the ground. And did she stay down? No. They say that she stood up again. And she stood up again to serve the cause of wilayah. And they say that they slapped her. They slapped Fatimiyyah. This is the blessed face of the Lady of Light. This is the blessed face about whom Mustafa sallallahu alayhi wa said she is an angel in human form. With a broken rib and having been struck, she still stands for the cause of wilayah. She is Islam. Dear mourners, we have to understand that Fatima is Islam manifest. Just as the Ahlul Bayt are all a single light. Imam Sadiq was once approached by someone who said, I wish to give condolences to you, for certainly they slapped your mother, Fatimiyyah. Imam Sadiq said, they are still slapping her face. And the man said, how, oh Yabna Rasulullah? He said, every woman who leaves the house without hijab is slapping the sacred face of Fatima. Yes, O mourners, we are still harming the Ahlul Bayt. We are still displeasing the Ahlul Bayt. They are still oppressing the Ahlul Bayt. What is this oppression? What is this pain of the Ahlul Bayt? That even after they leave this wretched world, they are still oppressed and they are still harmed and they are still hurt. They say that she only lived for a few more days after this tragic event. And there are 2 points I wish to share with you today. The first of them is what she said to Ali ibn Abi Talib, her blessed husband. She said, "Oh Ali, after me marry so and so, for she has many orphans. She is widowed. This is Fatima. Even on her deathbed, she is thinking of the orphans and wanting to help and protect them. Oh, Fatima, what about the orphans in your own house? Oh, Fatima, who will care for them also? This is Fatima, and it reminds me of a time where they were fasting and a man came to the house and they gave everything to that man. And so the house of Fatima was hungry. Oh, Fatima, how can you be so selfless? How can you give everything in the way of Allah so readily? And the next thing that Fatima said to her husband is, bury me in a place which is unknown and secret. Bury me in the dead of night so that nobody knows where I am buried. This is the Ahlul Bayt, who are so thoroughly oppressed even after they leave this world, that they have to be buried in the darkness of the night. This is the Ahlul Bayt, and even to today, we are deprived of visiting her for this reason. And just a few more sentences, for this is a very painful point that I wish to share. Mohsin had gone, and now she looks at her children. These are the last moments of Fatima. Oh, Fatima, is this the last time you will comb the hair of Kulthum? Is this the last time you will comfort Sayyida Zainab? Is this the last time you will hold Hassan in your heavenly embrace? Is this the last time you will see Hussein drinking water? They say that after burying Fatima, imagine Ali has to come home to this house of grief and sorrow and pain. We look for happiness, but imagine that this is the painful house of the Ahlul Bayt. Hassan is crying, Zainab is crying, Kulthum is crying. They say that Hussein stopped crying. They say that when Zainab was born, Imam Ali took him to the Prophet and said, "Oh, Ya Rasulullah, I will not name her until you name her." The messenger smiled and named her Zainab. When Hassan alayhi salam was born, the same thing happened. Imam Hussein takes this child in his arms. Imam Ali takes this child in his arms to Rasulullah. "Oh Rasulullah, I will not name him until you name him." Rasulullah smiles, takes this child in his arms and says, "His name shall be Hassan." But when Hussein was born, Ali takes this child from Fatima. He takes him to the Prophet, and this is the only child who, when the Prophet looked at him, he wept, and others wept too. The midwife wept. This is the house of Fatima, the house of grief and sorrow, the house of pains. O mourners, I ask you all to raise our hands in dua. O Allah, help us to tread on the path of Fatima and Hussein and Ali and the Ahlul Bayt alayhim as-salam. O Allah, Help us not to be afraid of enduring whatever pains and sorrows we may have to face in order to show our worth for the cause of wilayah. O Allah, help us to attain to true happiness and the ridaya of yourself and the Ahlul Bayt. O Allah, help us not to chase after vain desires and vain things. O Allah, help us to serve the Imam of the time. Oh Allah, help us not to be among those who displease the Ahlul Bayt. Oh Allah, help us in this time of sorrow and grief and pain to rise above the ashes of despair. Oh Allah, hasten the dhuhur of Imam al-Hujjat al-Qa'im al-Mahdi. عجل الله تعالى فرجه الشريف ببركة صلوات على محمد وآله الطيبين الطاهرين.
Ya Hussein, Ya Hussein, Ya Hussein, Ya Hussein, Ya Hussein, Ya Hussein. तेरी ज़हरा पे मुसीबत की घड़ी है, हाय ज़हरा तेरी ज़हरा पे मुसीबत की घड़ी है, हाय बाबा तेरी ज़हरा पे मुसीबत की घड़ी है, हाय बाबा तेरी ज़हरा पे मुसीबत की घड़ी है। कैसे दरवाजा हटाऊं, कैसे मोहसिन को बचाऊं, सांस सीने में रुकी है, तेरी ज़हरा पे मुसीबत की घड़ी है, हाय बाबा तेरी ज़हरा पे मुसीबत की घड़ी है। हाथ में जिसके मेरा हाथ दिया था तुमने, कह के मन कुन तो जिसे मौला कहा था तुमने, मैंने हर मोड़ पे बाबा साथ उसका है निभाया, हाँ मेरा जुर्म यही है, तेरी ज़हरा पे मुसीबत की घड़ी है, हाय बाबा तेरी ज़हरा पे मुसीबत की घड़ी है। तेरी उम्मत ने बना दी है ये हालत बाबा, कोई पसली भी नहीं मेरी सलामत बाबा, सांस लेती हूँ मैं जिस दम घुटने लगता है मेरा दम, सिर्फ मरने की कमी है, तेरी ज़हरा पे मुसीबत की घड़ी है, हाय बाबा तेरी ज़हरा पे मुसीबत की घड़ी है। कभी दरबार में पेशी को बुलाते हैं हमें, कभी दरवाजे पे आके सताते हैं हमें, मेरे ये फूल से बचे पूछते हैं यही मुझसे, क्या खता हमसे हुई है, तेरी ज़हरा पे मुसीबत की घड़ी है, हाय बाबा तेरी ज़हरा पे मुसीबत की घड़ी है। शर्म आती है भला तुमको बताऊं कैसे, ये तमाचों के निशा तुमको दिखाऊं कैसे, तुम ना पहचान सकोगे, देख कर मुझको कहोगे क्या मेरी ज़हरा यही है, तेरी ज़हरा पे मुसीबत की घड़ी है। हाय बाबा तेरी ज़हरा पे मुसीबत की घड़ी है। या हुसैन या हुसैन या हुसैन या हुसैन या हुसैन या हुसैन, अल्लाहुम्मा सल्ली अला मुहम्मद व आले मुहम्मद।
Allahumma salli ala Muhammad wa ali Muhammad wajjil farajahum. Thank you everyone for attending, and a very special thanks to our reciters, Brother Jari Abbas, Brother Muhammad Kumail Rizvi, Brother Ayan Mirza, and Brother Khurshid Abbas, and a very special thanks to our respected Sheikh. We hope to see you tomorrow at the same time, inshallah, for day 3 of our series, where the topic is Embrace Your Dreams. Allah will help you. We look forward to seeing you tomorrow. And until then, take care of yourself and those around you. Allah Hafiz.